this is Arlene, and you are listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Together with me is my another partner in crime, Gauri.
Hello.
So today we have two guests here, very prominent guests, I guess.
Yeah, so who are they, Arlene? You want to give us a little introduction?
Yeah, we have Azira Aziz. She's from Undi, Malaysia, and you're a lawyer. You also, I mean, you did lawyering before, right?
I was a lawyer, and now I'm a senior researcher.
I see. So, and also, of course, we have Azrul. He has been here before. He's a social activist, and one of your most prominent work is the Malaysian Walk in the Park.
It's Malaysians for Malaysia.
Malaysian for Malaysia, yeah. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So today we are going to talk about another issue that is very important in our Malaysian society, which is affecting, actually, interestingly, both Muslim and non-Muslim as well. It's about JAKIM and JAIS. The reason why we put a focus on JAKIM and JAIS, JAKIM is the Jabatan Kemajuan Malaysia, Kemajuan Islam Malaysia, which is an Islamic department in the federal government, while JAIS is Islamic religious department in the Selangor state. And we want to talk about the cost of religious policing in this country. But first of all, I guess what I want to know is the background of this religious institution. Maybe Azrul can sort of lay down the foundation.
Thank you, Arlene. Well, the religious departments have become quite prominent of late. I'm sure you've seen some of the pieces of news of the past few years where most recently JAKIM was involved, of course, in the Cadbury Gate.
Cadbury Gate, I like the word.
Yeah, we just concluded. We can now enjoy our Cadburys in peace. And that was JAKIM. And then most recently, of course, we have JAIS, the Jabatan Agama Islam Selangor, which has been involved in everything from visiting churches to the confiscation of Bibles, and this is
to the wedding crash. They become the wedding crasher for a Hindu wedding.
Wedding crash. It's one of those things that they apparently do. But so basically, once a federal body, as you said, is at the federal level, and it is located under the Prime Minister's Department, and that is JAKIM. And then the other one is under the state. So the state have, in each of the different states, there is a Jabatan Agama Islam Negeri. So in this case, it's Jabatan Agama Islam Selangor. I suppose the reason why we pick Selangor instead of Perak or Pulau Pinang or any other states, because Selangor ni aktif sikit lah. I think, so
Selangor is too active.
Yes, Selangor is doing all sorts of things. So, yeah, but I probably leave the legal side of things to Azira. I think she's the lawyer in the room. But basically, it's great to see how these two bodies interact from a legal perspective. Because I think that's important for us to understand, because there's a lot of menunding jari, I think, to like Jabatan Agama Islam Pulau Pinang, for example. But you're under the state government. Jabatan Agama Islam. Yeah, but Selangor, for example, people are saying, yeah, but aren't you under the Menteri Besar's office? So I think it would be great if we can clarify in this segment.
Yeah.
Okay, like this. You have to understand, the Islamic religion is strictly under the state list, the 9th schedule of the Federal Constitution. So by right, it's MAIS and JAIS that makes the shot in Selangor, for example, and JAIB and MAIB respectively in Pulau Pinang. JAKIM is just a regulatory body. They issue fatwas, yes, for so does.
And halal certificates.
Yeah. But yes, but also actually, JAKIM is just the guy who tries to regularize everything. But the final shot is called by MAIS. MAIS is the so-called policy maker who advises the Sultan on Islam in Malay cultures or adat lah. So, it's based on the enactment Pentadbiran Agama Islam Negeri Selangor 2003. So, with the exception of matters of justice and hukum syara, that's under jurisdiction of the Sharia courts lah, which falls under a different law. So, right now, how we like to relate to this is you have to, MAIS, they deal with things like property. They're a statutory body. They deal with property, they deal with management, they deal with land, they deal with auditing, even economic planning for restricted towards the lembaga zakat and all that. They offer services like wills, hibah, inheritance, distribution inheritance, and so forth. But and interestingly enough, from what I found on their website, is that they offer marriage services for mualafs.
Oh,
so that's
wow.
interesting. So
Is this matchmaking? Or?
no, I'm not sure what you meant. Like that's what it says. So the thing, so MAIS clear, policy maker. JAIS is just the enforcement body. They're the executor. So they have a very interesting way of defining themselves, which I have to quote. JAIS adalah agensi pelaksana segala dasar yang diputuskan oleh MAIS dan berperanan menegakkan syiar Islam serta menjaga hal ehwal umat Islam di negeri Selangor seperti nikah, cerai, dakwah, pendidikan Islam, pengurusan masjid dan sebagainya. So it's quite interesting how they view themselves, and that when you look at that, how they define, then you understand the rationale behind their actions recently. Because when the mandate that they have actually is just towards non-Muslim, is just restricted to one act, the non-propagation enactment in or in Malay enactment pengawalan. Sorry, that's the wrong one. It's this one enactment, which says that with regards to propagation to Muslims by non-Muslims only, be it by documents, by via like dakwah versi agama lain, then they have the right to intervene and stop, and you are actually liable to in a civil court. They actually have jurisdiction because you can't try a non-Muslim in a Sharia court. You have no jurisdiction. So what they did is enter it in, so you can charge them in magistrates, if I'm not mistaken. And so also halal. Yes, enforcement of halal. So if you see like there's some dodgy halal sticker on the side of the restaurant, JAIS can come and tell you, hey, this is wrong, I have to take it off. And they also control all the sekolah-sekolah agama in restricted to Selangor.
All the sekolah agama or only sekolah agama that is like started by the government? Like they have the sekolah rakyat, right?
Sekolah rakyat is I think on the civil. This is strictly sekolah agama Islam, Ampang, or sekolah agama Islam, Shah Alam. So it's under enactment pengawalan sekolah-sekolah agama 1988. So that's basically what JAIS is supposed to do. What's happening now is, in regards to enforcement, there's no clear standard operating procedure that we know of at the moment.
But is the religious departments, whether it's JAKIM or the state's religious department, are they independent from the executive, or either the executive in the federal or the executive in the states? Okay,
JAIS and MAIS definitely separate from federal. Federal have nothing to do with them, except that they have some communication between JAKIM and JAIS and MAIS. But in the end, the decision-making power is in JAIS and MAIS. And in regards to whether or not JAIS and MAIS has, usually must answer to MB of Selangor or must answer to the EXCO. Actually, right now the system, if it because of the sensitivity of the issue, how it can be inflammatory, they have as I understand it, like they have an agreement that if it concerns non-Muslims, they will consult with the EXCO Agama Islam first. But if it's within the Muslim community, then they have the right to actually execute as they think fit. So the thing is, they do have the power under the enactments given to them. The law is clear. However, the conduct of which they operate is still out there, as far as I'm concerned.
Unfortunately, here I have to interject, though, because Azira's missed out a very important person in this whole structure. One is, the Menteri Besar, I think we mentioned that in the executive, but the Sultan. The Sultan is the head of the Majlis Agama Islam. And it's important to ask the question, I think the burning question that everybody tends to ask when it comes to this issue, who's the boss? Who calls the shots and who is basically held to account when things happen, and who decides? So when we have situations like what happened in Selangor, with regards to the Bibles being confiscated, for example, you're scrambling to ask, why is the Menteri Besar acting the way he had been acting? And then also, it's one of the reasons why I wrote my open letter to the Sultan of Selangor back in January when this whole thing happened, is because at the end of the day, the one who can actually calm things down, make a difference, is actually the Sultan
But
Selangor
has
himself.
the Sultan done anything in the past, maybe not now, but in the past, in terms of regulating the issues related to Islam?
If you look at the enactment, the Sultan's power is actually quite limited.
Of course.
So he in fact, he's basically he has the power. In Selangor, it's quite surprising that he has direct power to appoint the Majlis Agama Islam, but how they conducted themselves is independent of the Sultan. So even if the role of the Sultan is kind of tricky. You're supposed to be above all the riffraff below you.
The idea of a Sultan is a moral authority, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a moral authority, but he's not supposed to come down and involve
But the
himself
reality, as you
in
know,
these things.
is very different, Azira. I mean, we have a situation here where when there are indications from the palace with regards to certain issues, then it gives the Majlis Agama Islam license to do, certain things. And
can you explain more about the letter that we wrote? Because I think you want sultans or kings to take accountable in this issue, isn't
the
it?
open letter that was written was really to ask him to, as the head of the religion in Selangor, to help make things better. I think he has a certain role that we can't deny with regards to how religious departments operate, especially here in Selangor. And it's something to us bear in mind. But I want to move away from that, I think, towards much more what we're talking about today, which is, I think, the cost of moral policing and certainly what does it mean for us in terms of, dollars and cents. And I mean, we heard just now in terms of, what was that? In terms of the structure, how does it work in Selangor and JAKIM? But, one of the things that I'm sure a lot of people don't know about is where do they get their funding from? There's a lot of assumption that because you pay zakat and because you pay, as a Muslim, you pay certain things that you contribute, therefore this money goes to, religious departments or mosques or something, or that the money that is used for the operations of these bodies comes strictly from Muslims, and that we need to sort of clarify.
Yeah. Before we move to the budget part, I'm sure you have a lot of numbers you want to disclose. I guess I just want to know about the religious department itself. It seems to be very independent. I mean, we are asking for the electoral body to be independent. We are asking for the judiciary to be independent, but they seem to be tied into the command of the executive. But when it comes to the religious departments, they seem to have their own ideology on how to do things. They seem to have their own manpower and workforce.
Yes,
a very hardworking one as well.
It's exactly what Azira said just now.
Yeah, because it's. We operate on the basis of separation of powers. Each of us are supposed to operate independently from each other, with the ideal that there'll be a check and balance system. But what MAIS and JAIS should realize is that, in the end, the agreement is the federal constitution is the supreme law of the land.
Absolutely.
So any enactments under the state law, they have to be mindful of the fact that we are signatory to the United Nations Declaration of Human Rights, and the implementation of their idea of proper and good enforcement must be in tandem with the international human rights norms, and they also need to understand that in the end, civil court judiciary system trumps Sharia court judiciary system. Luckily, in the recent case of Indira Gandhi, the court ruled that in the end follow the civil court's ruling. But now the problem is you have the authority, but the enforcer, the IGP, refuses to act and arrest the errant father in that case. So there's also this. It's not just a singular. It's not just about the structure of law. It's not just about funding scam. It's not just about it's the fault of the enforcer. It's a combination of all these. Does it create an environment that allows for abuse to occur? Does it create a sufficient enough check and balance system that can safeguard the rights of individuals and at the same time allow the JAIS and MAIS people to do their job? Because you have to understand from from their state, the executory point of view, if I do not act according to this set of guidelines, which we do not know because it's not released to the public, if I do not follow or meet this, because I see this, I do not take action on this report and act now, then what are the implications to me as in regards to my institution? And at the same time, you have to balance that with, for example, Ms. Zarina, the bride. She has actually made various applications in various Islamic institutions to change her status of religion, to get that certificate so that she can apply under Section 14 of the National Registration Act that she can, I am now a Hindu, no longer Islam on my IC. But they do not concede to her request, even though she attempted, and she had actually appointed lawyers from what I've read and heard. So in the end, actually, the issue is, when you look at it, the law is okay, more or less. Right now, what we need to do, for me, we need to amend, for the state of Selangor at least, amend the enactment so that we can include a clearer procedure. Like in the Negeri Sembilan enactment, Section 119 actually has a clear procedure. You have to make an application via summons with an affidavit in support, attesting that you are no longer a Muslim, and then you have to go for consultations. You have to go for they don't suddenly take you away and you disappear for 6 months, which has happened before in Malaysia. They just say, this is a court, come, make application, we give you free consultation, we try to guide you back into the faith, but if you still insist after about a year or 3-4 months, you have gone through all the 8 consultation sessions.
So there's no more detention center in Kemuning, if I'm not mistaken?
No, actually, it's in Undi.
This is rehabilitation centers,
yeah.
actually. Those we still have.
We still have. But at least in Negeri Sembilan, they already have a clear procedure. You want to convert our Islam, fine, but you have to go through these procedures. If after 1 year and 4 months of all these procedures are adhered to and you're still adamant, I am not a Muslim, I am a Hindu, for example, then they give you the certificate, you can apply, change your status. Of course, granted, you say, why? 1 year and 4 or 5 months, still long, better than nothing. Like in the Selangor enactment, there's no procedures at all in the enactment. How do you convert our Islam? You only have very clear instructions how to convert into Islam. That we have. That is actually, so that's the thing.
Actually, I want to raise more questions, and also we want to talk about the budget, but we will take a short break. When we return, we will have more discussion, and hopefully we can sort of give recommendation, recommendation to this JAKIM and JAIS. How maybe,
are they going to listen?
Hopefully they are going to listen.
The voice of sharing. Durian ASEAN.
Hey, this is Arlene, and you're listening to Durian ASEAN, the voice of discovery and sharing. Today, off air just now, we had another serious discussion about the role of JAKIM and JAIS, or the religious departments within different states in this country. Continue from our discussion earlier. Before we point who is the elephant in the room, perhaps Azrul can provide us a clearer picture on how much money they receive from the government yearly.
Well, one of the things that isn't very clear, especially sometimes Muslims and assume, and then non-Muslims don't know about, perhaps, or they both assume, is that the reality is that the budget for both the Jawatan Agama Islam Negeri and the Jawatan Kemajuan Islam Malaysia, JAKIM, both come from taxpayers' money. This is the tax that you pay each month, income tax, both Muslims and non-Muslims pay each year, every March. And there is a lot of people who assume that the running of mosques, for example, the running of these Jawatan Agama Islam, whatnot, all comes from money that, say, for example, they pay zakat money or they contribute some of them, which is not true. It actually comes from the sources where the federal budget gets its money, the state budget gets its money, so everybody pays it. Now, to give you an idea of what kind of numbers we're talking about, like, for example, back in 2002, JAKIM, the budget for them was almost 300 million. It's 293 million. Today, this year, it is now almost 900 million.
Wow.
885 million. They just asked for it. And it is the third largest component of the Prime Minister's department budget. So it's serious money here that we're talking about. And, when we hear the allocation for the amount, which I quote from the Minister in the Prime Minister's department, Jamil Khair Baharum, in which he said that the money in question for this year, the 885 million, is for the management and administration of Islamic missionary activities nationwide. He said it included payments for allowances of imam, religious, personal obligation class teachers, district mosque coordination officers. And then he says this allocation proves the concern of the federal government in ensuring the comfort of the groups who are directly involved in missionary activities at the grassroots level, because they're the mainstay in ensuring the continuity of harmony in the local community. Their role, this is an important sentence here, their role is becoming more challenging by the day with attacks on the faith from all angles.
Wow.
So the thing here is that they are justifying the increase of funding for themselves in order to sort of defend against, attacks that have been going on to the Islamic faith in this country. So what they're doing here, if you heard the word missionary, is da'wah. So they're doing da'wah activities, they're running, mosques, they're doing quite a few different things. But when you look at the negeri level, and almost every state budget actually has a Jabatan Agama Islam degree. Each of them have their own budget.
So on top of that. Oh,
so
wow.
the budget is between the miskin punya Jabatan Agama Islam negeri to the much more expensive
Which
one.
one is the poorest one?
The one, okay, so the one yang paling corot sekali lah, way at the back there is 9 million, which is Jabatan Agama Islam Perak, to the champion, which is 123 million.
Oh, wow.
JAIS. The
No
guys we're
wonder.
talking about today.
Okay, just to clarify, right? So you're saying that 900 million from state, but then the zakat money...
900 million federal.
900 million from federal, and then you have the zakat money collected by each state authority, by JAIS. Then by lembaga zakat, then how that is only for the state alone, not touched on top of the 900.
Yeah.
So JAKIM, they distribute according to each state equally, or how?
No, that's the thing. With regards to the zakat contributions, unfortunately, in terms of public, we don't really know how it's distributed. And that is a real concern, because when you consider the amount of money that has been actually collected each year in terms of zakat, it's like huge. It's like, I give you a quote, since you brought up the issue of zakat,
Yes.
In 2007, 806 million was collected in that year alone.
Wow.
Just that year, zakat money. And the data from the Pusat Pungutan Zakat, or the Center for Zakat Collection, indicates that there is an appreciation each year, which is better than any fixed deposit I ever heard, which is around 20%. That means if it was 2007, it was 806 million, 20% appreciation, that's serious money there. On top of
There's serious
everything.
investment.
Yeah. So we're talking about, say, imagine zakat money plus the federal money plus the state money. That is a lot of money. So when we're talking about the cost of moral policing, the guys who are, kicking in doors, tangkap kalwa, the guys who are, seizing Bibles or see who
It's a
tak
full-time
puasa
job for
waktu
them.
bulan puasa. Yeah, it's a full-time job, man. There's a lot of people you got to employ. This is a serious lot of money. So question is, we need transparency. We need accountability of what our money, and I say our because it's Muslim and non-Muslim, money is being used, because I don't want to hear that the only thing that these religious departments are doing are going into churches, or interrupting people's weddings, seizing Bibles, or funerals. So, and it's really unfair, I think, for the Jabatan Agama Islam as well, if that is all they're known about, because I know they do a lot of stuff.
Okay, I would like to. I'm sorry, I need to interject.
No,
So
go
do you
ahead.
know what's the breakdown for things? Because I have had reports from single mothers, orphanages, homeless people saying that they don't really get the wang
Baitul Mal
zakat.
money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They don't the Baitul Mal.
Baitul Mal, yeah.
Because they told me the reason why. So there's this one case, one mother, 4 children. left by the husband. We call it gantung tak bertali. So she doesn't have a job. So she's desperately needs help to feed her children. Went to Jabatan Zakat. Jabatan Zakat sent an officer to her house so that she has a TV left by her absentee husband. Says that she doesn't qualify for zakat money because she has a TV.
Oh my!
I know. So it's that's why when you raise that point, it's a very valid point. How? Because they actually have an account on the website. JAIS do have that. And then again, they only, of course, they put accounts lah, but you don't really know how it's distributed. You don't really know the standard. What's the standard operating procedure? You don't know who are the decision makers within the structure. Because when you question, you say no. Even when non-Muslims ask, because come on, it's your tax money as well. And you go like, you're a non-Muslim, you cannot question, fine, because it doesn't concern you. But when a Muslim comes out and asks, you cannot question, you are against Islam until you murtad. So you have that mentality that you're
you're not allowed to question.
That you're not allowed to question, and you're only inclined to just accept it.
And the idea of trying to assume that whatever the JAKIM and JAIS and other religious departments or religious bodies in this country are doing are supposedly a divine action directly for God.
Sanctioned,
sanctioned for God. I think is really ridiculous. I mean,
but also when you consider the case that Azira has brought up here, in terms of welfare cases, honestly, when you look at how much money is collected for zakat alone, we should not be having so much hardcore poverty.
Exactly.
And
homeless people, like today's news, the government is trying to crack down on the homeless.
That's crazy.
I'm not surprised there's going to be homeless spikes all over under the bridge, outside the shopping mall windows.
No, but the thing is, right now, when we look at also the authority, the moral authority that is given, I have a problem with, for example, JAKIM. JAKIM has been using the Friday sermons. Today is Friday.
Yes.
In a few hours, you're going to hear a sermon. And
report back to us. What
just go online. They publish.
The sermons are basically a template by JAKIM distributed to all the mosques in this country. So it's really interesting. Like some of my friends always the only independent place where I've heard variations of JAKIM from JAKIM's sermons is in Penang.
Okay.
Yeah.
But actually, the content of those sermons are very, very concerning to me, because every time I go to Friday prayers, I go in dread because I don't know what's going to come from the pulpit. And for the past few months, what has been coming out from, because as Azira said, it comes from JAKIM, it's standardized text, therefore every mosque will read that text, is a message of hate, ignorance, bigotry, prejudice.
Can you give example of the ones that you've heard before?
Well, it talks about enemies of Islam, and then they start listing down who these enemies are. And I'm looking around and like, the guys who are around me seem to be the enemies of Islam. I'm like, what the hell is going on? And this is the thing that I'm concerned about, because rather than, honestly, okay, we're on radio, but I'm just going to say it anyway, is that I used to sleep. When I'm it's boring, it's so saccharine sweet, and it's all warm and fuzzy. It makes me so warm and fuzzy. I doze off during during Friday prayers. But beginning from Aidil Fitri last year, where I was listening to the Aidil Fitri sermon, I started taking down notes. I took out my note, my smartphone, and started writing down notes, because I couldn't believe that the sermons were being used to propagate a message of fear, of hate, of distrust. So what JAKIM's authority here with regards to, is that they have an moral obligation to act responsibly and not to be part of an agenda that is splitting us apart. Religion is bringing people together, not separating each other or dividing people.
And it seems like a lot of these cases happen mainly in Peninsula. I haven't heard any acts from religious departments in Sabah, Sarawak, or maybe it's not being reported. I don't know.
You have the Sabah Bible case, no?
Yeah.
That one. The Home Ministry actually seized 30,000 copies. Is it?
But it's the Home Ministry, right? I'm talking about
the Home Ministry. The Sabah, because Sabah Sarawak Sabahans and Sarawakians are a lot better when it comes to religious freedom and
How do they
religious
manage it? I mean, in Sabah and Sarawak.
Oh, they don't have JAKIM giving them some standard tax.
Although they have some problems with regards to the forced Islamization, forced
Yeah.
conversions, or they've been tricked into conversion. But it's less of the kind of problems that we face here in Peninsula. But recently we've heard of very, I think, acts of real. I think it's disgusting. It humiliates people. It gives people lack of dignity. Recently those 16 transgender women.
Oh yeah, the one in Negeri Sembilan.
In Negeri Sembilan were detained by the Jabatan
And they were
Agama Islamic.
forced to get their head shaved
Yeah.
bald.
Unfortunately, I have to say this, it's not uncommon. Because when religious authorities raid certain places, which they encounter transgenders, there are instances where, like in the recent Jizaili case, they were sexually assaulted by the religious officers.
Yeah.
And there are many
Molested.
within the community that I spoke to, because occasionally I attend sexuality Merdeka events, and their community's feedback is always the same. We were not treated with respect of dignity. We were hurled insults. We were harassed, humiliated.
And sexually assaulting these people. I mean, is it even, is it not against Islam to, act in that way?
I mean, think about it. These guys are from the religious authorities, yet they are being, when they are detaining, it's really bad enough. Some of them have been sexually molested. They have been assaulted, where, they have breasts, but because they consider them to be men, they consider them it's no problem to strip, for example.
Yeah.
And these are being told by, religious authorities. It's like, how can you treat someone with so much, disrespect and to strip somebody of their dignity? And that is not Islamic. And we need to say that.
And I also need to say this: it does not reflect well on the religion, or let alone any Islamic institution. When you go around saying that I am the authority, I have for some reason divine powers invested in me via the law enactments, state enactments, to actually impose my idea of how you should live in your personal life, how you should profess your religion, how you should dress, how you should you communicate with other communities or members of your own family, how you should deal with pets, even pets.
I see.
So it's very, to me, it's very invasive, and it's a very unhealthy trend.
Yeah.
Because there's this one professor by the name of what's his name?
You're not going to quote Ridwan T.
No, I'm not going to quote Ridwan
I'm going to
T.
throw myself off a building.
His name is actually Timothy Samuel Shah. He's associate director of Religious Freedom Project from Berkeley Center for Religion. So he did this talk in April in Ideas. So he spoke about the correlation between the social hostility index and countries with high government control on how the citizens profess their religion. And his conclusion is based on his research, because he showed us this chart from the Pew Research Project as well. And where there is a direct correlation between government control of religious freedom and social hostility. So if the less control government has, like the less they care about whether or not you're Muslim or not, the more peaceful the ethnic relations, religious relations in that particular community itself.
I see.
So I have this chart in front of me actually, but it's okay. So you can see, like in countries like US, it's moderate. I mean, because they have a huge environment to speak out. They say a lot of nasty things, but they also say a lot of good things. And because the dialogue is always ongoing, so it's their level of hostility and level of control is just moderate. So it's quite low. In countries like Japan, they're the most and Canada, come on, they're the most polite countries in the world. So it's really low, because in the end, you as long as you do not harm one another, you abide by the federal constitution, the supreme law of any land, depending on the country, then it's okay. So, but in countries such as Iran, Egypt, and then you have Russia.
Malaysia.
Yeah,
No, but
Malaysia. Okay, Malaysia is actually somewhere. Yeah, actually in high government control, but moderate social hostility.
So you want to say
no,
something?
it's just
Azrul?
that I think at the end of the day we've got to go back to basics.
Mm-hmm.
I think, in my opinion at least, our religious authorities have lost their way. When you consider the fact that the fundamentals of religion talk about acceptance, tolerance,
We used to
humility.
be much more. I mean, Islam has been the religion of this country for centuries. But it has never been to this extent where the state actually meddle with the private lives of individuals.
Well, actually, religion always, especially institutionalized religion, there is always a certain form of control over certain things that you do. But at the end of the day, faith is a personal thing. But when you look at what is happening today, the institutionalization of religion has imposed a certain amount of tyranny, I think, on us. And I think it's naive for us to say that, it's only, don't worry, the non-Muslims shouldn't be worried about this because it's only Muslims, as if Muslims have a right to be terrorized as opposed to non-Muslims. But the point here is that we need to be able to go back to the basics of it because we're looking pretty bad. I think Azira mentioned it very nicely just now. I think we're looking we're giving religion a bad name. We're talking about Islam. It's giving Islam a bad name because it seems we're very arrogant. We don't want to listen to opinion. We don't want to learn. We are very narrow-minded. Whereas Islam, when you think about history, talk about the historical context of Islam, it's about learning, it's about knowledge, it's about debate, it's about argument. You do not progress without argument, without debate. And what's happening now is that our religious authorities...
You can't even have an alternative view.
Yeah,
Especially for example, the DNA, the pig DNA, the porcine DNA.
No, but okay. Let me to be.
But they don't allow you to debate it. They don't allow you to discuss it. And most importantly is that they say...
But why?
No, we allow it.
Yeah.
We allow this to happen, by the
I
way.
see.
And this is what I'm saying, is that we're equally responsible. Because they crack down on us, they say we can't do it, we allow it. We allow them to get away. Why should we do that? We should have open discussions about these issues. But anyway, sorry, I'm just going on a bit.
Because the way I see it, this is my honest opinion. This is based on certain studies as well. The fact that you call yourself an Islamic authority or an Islamic nation does not mean you have to implement hudud law. Does not mean that you are going to automatically go to heaven. Does not mean that you are going to automatically have social justice and fairness in a nation. It has to go back into then you say, as God says, use your akal. It has to go back to your reasoning, your knowledge, and you have to keep on questioning because it's quite shameful for me to read this. I'm sure you've read about a Professor Hussein Askari's research, where he ranked of all of the 200 countries in the world.
This is the Islamicity Index.
Yeah, the Islamicity Index. Yeah. And he said he based his variables on this. He based on if a country's society characteristics such as whether it's unelected, corrupt, oppressive, unjust rulers, inequality before the law, unequal opportunities for human development, absence of freedom of choice, including religion, opulence alongside poverty, force and aggression as the instruments of conflict resolution, as opposed to dialogue and reconciliation. And in the top 10, not a single Muslim country made it. The highest ranking Muslim country is apparently Malaysia lah. To be proud, to be number 33 on top of the other countries.
But that shows that when it comes to Islam, it's more than just about, whether you wear hijab or whether you observe your fasting, or you
5 times a day,
or whether you go to Friday prayers. It's more than just that, or whether you are transgender or straight.
Yeah.
I think
the core value about being a Muslim is this: you have to believe in number one, submission to Allah. When it comes to submission to Allah, it means you have to believe in His mercy and compassion at the very core of it. His love, mercy, and compassion. And later on, then you say, when you see, yes, He given us the Quran. It's a guideline, right? It's a guideline. So you can call it, yes, it's a divine law. You say that it's a it's a set down words of God ad verbatim. I say it's only put down in writing 60 years after the death of the Prophet Muhammad. So to me, that means it's open for debate. So to me, if you fail to believe that in essence, you see, Islamic essence is social justice, compassion. If you fail to have that, it doesn't matter what you label yourself. It doesn't matter how you garb yourself. You will still be a failed state, and it will still be un-Islamic in any
level. I think those two phrases, two words, three words actually, are central to how we should understand Islam today. Social justice, compassion. Because I think today, when you look at the religious authorities, we're lacking in these two values. Because there is so much to learn from other religions on how they do their charity work or welfare work, for example. You know, why are we putting accusations of proselytization, for example, on non-Muslim charity groups that are doing soup kitchens, for example, reaching out to the poor, going to the hospitals? I see so many things that at the end of the day, I, as a Muslim, when I look at my non-Muslim brothers and sisters doing charity work, helping the homeless, reaching out, you know, hospitals and everything.
Like poor Malays.
Yeah, and the thing is that I am inspired to see what I can do to help. And the thing is, we should be thinking we shouldn't be thinking only Muslims. Yeah. We should be, if we're going to help people, we should be helping everyone. And that is why when you look at the non-Muslims, you are inspired because they don't care who comes to the door.
As long as you are a member of a marginalized community in any state, they will come and help you. For example, there's this one case, if you recall, apparently there was this OKU center. It was actually led by Muslims, but it was the Christian missionaries who funded it and maintained it. Why? Because our Jabatan Zakat did not decided that it was.
OKU is a disabled center.
Yeah, sorry. OKU, yes.
But it goes back to that point I think Azira mentioned earlier, is that our Islamic authorities are failing in the most important part, which is taking care of their ummah. It seems like you have to die first before they come after you, claiming you to be their own. And I think we shouldn't be that way. I think we should be able to go back to the basics and reach out and take care. And I honestly don't want to hear them harassing and humiliating, our fellow Muslims, like the transgender women the other day in Negeri Sembilan, and then later in Malacca. You know, I mean, we've got a lot to do. Instead of trying to marginalize them and humiliate them, why not bring them, help them, or just let them live their life in peace? You know, we don't need Jabatan Agama Islam to be synonymous with tangkap kalwat, raiding transgenders, snatching bodies from funerals.
But their defense is, other departments are doing it. Like if you're talking about poverty, we have the economic planning unit, or or whatever it is, or the women's and community ministry. Why, like ours is more on the morality part. So how do you justify that, isn't it?
To me, that's when I have to say it has to go back to you, whoever is listening. It has to go back to each of us to search within our souls. If we think that this is morally wrong, how can we do nothing? One. Secondly, I would suggest that you would, in the end, all these enactments because the Islamic laws are under the state. So all these enactments are passed by the legislative assemblies of the state. If you believe that you need certain laws are so unjust to your community, or so unjust to even yourself, or your friends and your family and so forth, it is up to you to create the initiative and the environment to not only, we already have so many NGOs creating the dialogues, but what we need now is actual impact. We need people to lobby. We need people to give recommendations. We can't just rely on Malaysian Bar to always be accused of being a tool of Pakatan Rakyat when they are actually very independent and they slam the state a lot of times. So you have to create yourself the vision of the kind of Malaysia that you want to create and to work for it. It will be very long. It will be very hard. It will be frustrating and you will feel depressed.
We will fail many times.
But-
It's important to say that.
Like as the Chinese say, fall 7 times, get up 8 times.
Exactly.
So any Muslim quotes, equivalent quotes on that. So anyway, we are at the end of our show. But any last comment on this? Like, how can we hold them accountable? As individuals, as Malaysians.
Well, I think at the end there we have to going back to basics, going back to social justice, compassion. But most importantly, I think it's operational. That there is no compulsion in religion.
Exactly.
It's stated in the Quran. It is the way of life that we should be, practicing, and that we should be able to open our arms and embrace others. And I say this I put up a call to the Jabatan Agama Islam Negris, including JAIS and JAKIM, is that rather than marginalizing yourselves and trying to claim exclusivity over Muslims and the sphere in which they would like to have only Muslims, reach out, embrace non-Muslims as well, get them, open your hearts, open your doors so that they can learn about you, so that we can live in harmony and peace. Don't send out messages of hate, of mistrust. Send out messages of peace, compassion, and harmony instead. Let that be the message for every Friday sermon, so that I can, doze off a little bit and get some shut-eye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, as for me, I believe that Malaysia has always been intended as a secular nation. If you read the Red Commission report in 1957, it always stated that, just because Islam is the religion of the Federation, it does not imply that the state is not a secular state. Because at the time, it was simply it's an unequal statement. Because like I said, what is the core value of Islam? Social justice and compassion. So that was what, to me, it meant. And later on in the white paper, the Malaysian Commission recommendations, even though it didn't make it to our current version of Federal Constitution, the spirit and intention was clear. Malaysia is a secular nation.
Are you saying that we should, put aside religious departments or religious institutions?
Okay, I would.
Wait.
I would sincerely say this. For true social justice to be implemented in Malaysia, there has to be only one system, one legal system, one legal structure for all Malaysians.
Mm-hmm.
So it does not, in the end, whether it is civil law or hudud law, it's up to the people we elect in the parliament and the assemblies.
I guess we will have another session on secular state, whether we need just one system or two systems.
Absolutely.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you, Arlene.
Thank you, Arlene.
Thank you so much.